Hello everyone and welcome back to another episode of Speedrun Insider. My name is CJitsallGewd. Thank you so much for joining me this week, as you do every week. If you haven't already, remember to like, share, comment, subscribe, rate us, review us, give us 5 stars. If you only give us 4 stars, I'm inclined to believe you are a hater. Shout out to Belmonte Jones from ESPN's The Right Time for the Quip. As always, we have a very exciting conversation ready to go for all of you, but first, I just wanted to say thank you to everybody that's been joining the Discord and participating in the conversations surrounding the podcasts. If you want to join the Discord so that you can take part of the conversation as well as vote on guests for the upcoming episodes of Speedrun Insider All-Stars, make sure that you join the Discord. The Discord invite link will be available in the YouTube video comments. We cannot put it right now in the comments of the audio feed, so if you're listening wherever you get your favorite podcasts, jet on over to the YouTube and you can join that Discord right quick. Real easy, real simple. You can request the role so that you get pings every time that an episode comes out. As soon as I post the episode, before I post it in the audio feed, before I do anything else, I ping the server. So if you want to get as soon as possible, right, hot, ready, and fresh, Little Caesars $5 pie. That's as fast as you can get it right there on the windowsill. And that's enough of me blabbermathing about where you can find the podcast and how you can interact with the community, because we have a really special guest for us today, one that I'm very excited to talk to. We have, do I call him the Pope of Paper Mario? Is that title too honorific? Is it too grandiose in scale? Is he too humble to accept such praise? I don't know. Let's ask. Hello, JCog. How are you doing?
I'm
Pope
good.
Of
How are you
Paper
doing?
Mario?
I don't know about Pope of Paper Mario. That might be a bit much.
Would you accept Cardinal?
Cardinal, you know what? I can go with it.
I do think that the Cardinals have like a slightly snappier outfit. It's kind of red. They have like the cooler looking hats. They don't have to like live in the Vatican.
Yeah.
Maybe they have a little more agency.
I can go with that, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So I did want to start really quick that, as always, there is this process of like, hey, how am I going to like find people to be on the show? My own self-doubt creeps in every direction. And then I'm like, the easiest way is just to join public servers and then like ask people.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So I'm like, all right. So I was like, great. And I think we have a mutual friend.
Oh.
Gunlap.
Oh, yeah.
Also, AKA, please call me Eric.
Yep, Eric.
Yep. And that's the first thing he ever said to me. Hey, my name's Gunlap, but please call me Eric. I was like, all right, you got it. Right on your sleeve. So I was like, hey, I know that, you two are down to clown. So I'm like, okay, cool. I'm going to go at it. And so I DM'd you. And I was like, because I DM'd a lot of people that day, and I'm like, all right, I really hope that I get like some reaction. And you got back to me like really quick, right?
Mm-hmm.
You got like right back to me. But I was like, ooh, I was like rubbed my hands together and everything, as you do. And then you were like, hey, what are the details? I'm like, yeah, perfect details, CJ, time to shine. Get the details out. So I like type them all up. I'm on my phone. I'm typing all the details up. And then I didn't hear anything. And I'm like, oh, all right. So 4 days go by.
Yeah.
And I'm like, hey, I'm reading it. Hey, I hate to be a bother, but I wanted to see if you had a chance to think about it. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm really bad at responding to DMs.
It's true. It's a problem. I need to get better about that.
So sometimes I read a DM and then I'm like, this is the answer to that question. And I don't actually like write anything down. I'm like, I answered that. Okay, moving on. Like I move on to the next thing. Is that what you do? Or do you like, wander away?
It's a combination of that. And then sometimes, it's more just wandering away. I open the DM. I'm like, oh, I should respond to that. And then I just don't. And I never marked it as unread again. And so I just forget about it.
I know that so many people in my life, I'm not saying this applies to you, but so many people in my life and my cultural sphere have like some form of self-admitted like ADHD. So like when sometimes I message people and I'm like, did you get this? did you like? I'll be like poking them, like, hey, listen, I need an answer. So, it's all good. It worked out. Hey, we're here right now, right here and right now.
I did eventually make it.
You did eventually make it, and we had to find a time that worked for us. Obviously, this is like you are in like basically a layover.
Well, I was, and then I was going to have a run in Glitch Infinite. They're doing like it's normally a Smash tournament. They're teaming up with GSA and doing like a speedrun thing. But then now it got postponed to February. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that just happened like last week.
Oh, because of the COVID.
Yeah. I
always forget. Sometimes I forget, right? Because I still have to go to work every day. Yep. I have to, regardless. Like, it's like, hey, wear a mask. You're good. It's like, really? It kind of feels like everyone's like, everything's on fire. No. Wear a mask. You're good. All right. Like, I remember when I got laid off during like the beginning of it. Oof. I was like, I said to somebody, I was like, do you understand how bad it must have been for the New York like Auto Dealers Association to be like, yeah, we all have to go home. Like, the idea, like, that's like McDonald's not selling cheeseburgers. Just
like the one thing they're known for. Yeah, we can't do that anymore.
Right. Well, I said, people were talking about societal collapse when there was like a shortage of toilet paper.
Oh, right.
I said, you want to see people really go crazy? You want to see the stock market plummet and people take to the streets? Tell them they can't buy beer and tell them they can't go get a McDonald's cheeseburger. I'm telling you, America will be ablaze by midnight.
Sounds about right.
Yeah, absolutely right. Like, listen, I'm not that quarter pounder life I used to be. So I'm like, hey, listen, I got to give me my number one, my number two, number two. So, but yeah, it's kind of, so what, you've been doing some live event stuff, haven't you? You did something else last year.
Yes.
Did you?
GDQ, you mean? Or...
Was that, no.
Wait, you said live?
Yeah.
No,
I misremembering.
I haven't been to anything in person since AGDQ 2020, which was before the pandemic, so.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah.
Is there a memory from AGDQ that, like, really stands out in your mind as, like, this is, like, a really, like, special moment or memory, and now, having been on the other side of 2 years ago, it's like, man, I want to go back there.
I don't know if there's any specific memory, but I don't know, just like GDQ's, back at that time I was, still working a full-time job. And so like those were where my vacation days went mostly. So it was just more looking forward to that, twice a year, going and hanging out with the people that had become like my best friends. And then, so yeah, no, I don't know if there's any individual specific moment, but just thinking back on like, the good times that I was able to have with all those people and not being able to do that for, 2 years at this point.
I was talking with someone about this because it is funny. There was this like meme about the world ending, but it was that North Korea nuke thing. It had nothing to do with COVID. Remember that?
That's so long ago.
And that was JGDQ.
Oh my god, yeah.
We're like, all right, if we get blown up, we're gonna be partying down.
Is that when we were talking about World War III? Oh my god, that was...
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I have, in my Twitter, it's insensitive now, but at the time, it was really funny. Do you remember when they had that Super Bowl commercial where they killed Mr. Peanut?
Oh, yeah.
Like he went off a cliff and they're like, maybe he's still alive. And then they blew up the car, right?
I do remember
killed Planners, Mr. Peanut. I went on Twitter after I saw that and I wrote, did Wuhan kill Mr. Peanut?
Oh, no.
Now, that was like, it's problematic now, but we didn't call it COVID-19 then, right?
We did not.
So I was like, oh man, this aged like milk. I have to get rid of this, but it's really funny. Like with that little bit of nuance that Twitter just doesn't afford you.
Yeah.
It's a really funny joke.
Oh my god. But yeah, looking back on it now, it's just like, oh god.
Yeah, it's like, oh god, I called it the China flu. Ugh. Yeah, I might as well just call it yellow fever. That's how blue it was. Yeah. So we'll get to how unnuanced of a platform Twitter is in a little bit, but I did already mention you are the cardinal of one of the cardinals of Paper Mario. I forgot on the Catholicism org chart there are multiple cardinals. You know, so obviously Paper Mario is your bag, right?
Yeah, definitely.
It is the centerpiece of a lot of the content that you do, whether it's the playing it blindfolded, which was really cool. I got to watch that.
Oh, thank you.
Today in preparation of this conversation. Did you play it with the glove? I saw that you got the glove.
I did play it with the glove. That was an experience I never want to have again.
Really quick, talk to me about the glove.
Yes.
How bad is the glove?
It's awful. Okay, so if anyone listening knows like what the NES Power Glove is, I've never used that specifically, but it's the same idea, but for N64, except it's also third party. It's called, I forget exactly what it's called, but there's like a website on the side of it. And if you go to that website, it's a dead link. Crazy thought that apparently making a glove for an N64 was not a good business practice. Not a good business idea. But yeah, so basically, yeah, you control everything with one hand. The analog stick is moving your wrist around, and then all the buttons are there for your fingers. And it's just, it's not that bad if you're just using it for 10 minutes, try it out, whatever. But I forget how many hours the run that I did went on. And I basically was just like, if I can, I'm going to beat this as fast as I can. If I can manage to pull off a glitch with it, then I'm allowed to do it. And there were some I was able to, some I wasn't. But just, especially toward the end, my hand just started hurting. Like it was sore. Yeah. And
oh, God.
Yeah, no. I have it sitting in a box. And yeah. I'm glad I did it. Don't want to do it again.
There's this passing thought in my mind that you would feel like Thanos, right?
Yes.
Like you've got the big ass glove and you're like, I am inevitable.
Dude,
as you're going in. Yeah,
go
ahead.
That reminds me. That's actually that reminds me what it's called. It's called the Reality Quest. That was the glove. So it was like, the Reality Stone.
Yeah.
It was, oh my God, it was perfect.
That name is such like a wet, that name is such like a wet blanket of a name. It's like the Reality Quest. And there was some sugar high commercial for it,
Oh, there had to be, right?
Ridiculous. 100%. Available at your local Kmart. Buy it now.
Oh man.
It's, it's funny how different things are now, especially with advertising. I love watching old commercials. I did a lot of advertising stuff in college and just looking at all these old adverts. I saw one right before we started this conversation. I was unloading the car for the groceries, and it's an old 7-Up print ad.
Okay.
And there's a guy, I think I'll send it to you. There's a guy, and he's kind of got this weird look on his face. And there's a woman, and she's bent forward, kind of a gasp, got her hand over her mouth.
Okay.
And it's and the big headline on top is imagine what you can do with 2 fingers and a thumb. And it's an ad about 7-Up drink. Okay? But the guy's talking about bowling. So I think I just sent it to you.
Okay.
Oh, is it not loading? Come on.
No, I got it.
Okay, yeah, what? Cool.
This reminds me of those, do you remember those Game Boy, I think it was Game Boy Advance SP ads? Yeah, it's got the same vibe as those, where it's really? That's what you're going with? I mean, okay.
I'm listen, this is how you thought to sell a lemon lime beverage? It's just this really weird, oh, I'm so tired. Oh, and then it's also weird.
It is weird.
Pseudo-sexual tension about a bowling ball and a soft drink. Listen, things are a lot different. But in the 90s and the late 80s and the early 90s, it's everything was yelling, extreme cereal, sugar. You gotta get the big Nerf gun, super soaker.
Guess they had to get someone's attention somehow.
Yeah, it's just it's almost we've dropped subliminal and they dropped subliminal and they went straight for like superliminal. Buy it now. Buy the soda. But they went from being like, imagine what you can do with 2 fingers and a thumb on KBB9 to buy 7-Up. Well, that was a lovely tangent, but okay. So, believe it or not, back to my question. Sure. I've never played any Paper Mario game ever, not 1 second. I watched part of a Paper Mario. Well, I watched the whole thing. I was doing commentary for an event with my boy Void, and he was running Paper Mario for one of my charity events, and I was like, I'll hang out with you. And we talked about Pirates of the Caribbean, so I don't know what happened. But I am interested in playing it for the first time. I actually own it.
Okay.
I just never played it. So talk to me about, like, you know, obviously it's the centerpiece of a lot of what you do and how you spend your time, and obviously all the work that you put into it.
Right.
Inside and outside of content. So what does the game mean to you? And, you know, how did it, you know, capture so much of your mind and your heart? And then give me your elevator pitch on me playing it.
Sure. So, I mean, I go way back with the game. I remember whenever it first came out, I was a kid, and I didn't have an N64 as a kid, but my cousin did, and so I would always be going to his house a lot. And so, like, one of my favorite things to do is, like, you know, I'd go to his place, and then usually we'd, like, he had a swimming pool, so we'd go swimming, and then after that we'd go in and play N64. And one of my probably my favorite game to play was Paper Mario, and so, like, we'd, like, take turns playing it and stuff. And then I don't know, I just as time went on, I eventually got it. There was, like, the re-release on Wii VC, and so that was whenever I first got it for myself, and I was able to, like, beat it there. And I don't know, I just liked it so much. I would usually do, like, 1 playthrough a year or so, and yeah, I had a lot of fun with it. But reasons why it's a good game and that you should get into it. So it's kind of like, I don't know, you could call it baby's first RPG. It takes a lot of the RPG elements and, like, simplifies them a lot to make it a lot more accessible, without really sacrificing. Like, they still have a whole bunch of strategy. There's a lot of different ways you can approach the game. So yeah, it has just, like, some really charming dialogue. The what's not translation, but
like localization.
Localization, yeah. The localization team did a fantastic job making the dialogue just, you know, really incredible, really charming. The battles are one of the best. One of my favorite things about the battles are that they made the numbers smaller. It's a thing in a lot of RPGs where you're doing these, like, huge damages, where you're doing, like, thousands of damage at a time. And I feel like that's really hard to keep track of. Whereas in Paper Mario, the most like, the final boss has 99 HP. So, like, you're always dealing with smaller numbers, which are a lot easier to keep track of. And then it's got a really good, like, badge system, which is, like, you can give yourself different abilities and stuff, and you have different points you can put toward them. And so that's where a lot of the strategy comes from. And yeah, just being able to explore that world. It's, you know, classic Mushroom Kingdom. Being able to go around and talk to the different characters. I don't know, it's a really good time.
It sounds really fun. I have it. I think I'm gonna play it this year. I kind of want to, like, there's a bunch of N64 games in my back catalog that I'm like, I should play this at some point, but I'm also, like, you know, drowning in, you know, work, I guess. But yeah, you know, I know that some people kind of think that the series kind of, like, fell off or went in a weird direction. I don't know if you have feelings towards, like, the later entries.
I do, yep.
You can go ahead.
Yeah, so, I mean, I don't think my opinion differs very much from, like, the majority. You know, the first 2 Paper Marios, Paper Mario and The Thousand Year Door, are, you know, The Thousand Year Door is basically, like, exactly what a sequel to a game should be. Just take the base concepts and build on it. And then Super Paper Mario, which was the Wii release, they changed it all up. It's a very different game, but still holds true to, like, a lot of the, you know, like, the unique characters and stuff like that. And then you get into Sticker Star, Color Splash, and Origami King, and I have yet to play I have yet to play Color Splash, but I have tried Sticker Star, didn't like it. But I did play Origami King, and I had a lot of fun with that one for what it was. But I feel like the best way to approach the series now with the modern games is to just consider it an entirely different series that just so happens to have the same name. Like, they just took it in an extremely different direction, and it's not necessarily bad now that it seems like they're getting that their new plan, I guess, figured out. Their new game type. But yeah, I don't know. Don't expect the original Paper Mario style.
Yeah, that's a phenomenon I think I felt before with Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, same idea.
My analogy for Origami King, where, like, if that game wasn't called Banjo-Kazooie and it was just Nuts and Bolts and you had two random characters, that game is actually kind of fun.
That's what I've heard.
What it is. Like, but it's not Banjo 3E, which is what everyone wanted, right? And it doesn't live up to anything that we would have wanted after waiting basically 8 years for a sequel.
Right.
Right. And a Banjo 3E on the GameCube, like, released in like 03 or 04, that game would have been like an instant classic. Like, there's no way. With the way that the games on the GameCube came out, that catalog is like all killer and no filler.
It really is.
What is your favorite, like, generation of games, I guess?
Favorite generation? As much as I play Paper Mario, probably the GameCube era, yeah, like you said. There's a lot of games in it that I still need to play, but I mean games like that one, Super Mario Sunshine, which is another game that I speedrun. There's Kirby Air Ride is a classic. TTYD, the Thousand Year Door, like I said. That was the first home console that I had as a kid that I like really got into the games, and so have a lot of nostalgia for that. Even the Sonic games, even though I play them now and I'm like, yeah, I don't know how I played these as a kid, but I loved them then.
I picked Sonic Adventure 2 Battle at random out of a case at Walmart, and that was like one of the best random picks I've ever had, and I missed on a bunch.
Yeah, that one holds up better than most, but
yeah, it did. It does. It's still god awful. It's so bad. But it holds up.
It has some good levels. Chow Garden's great.
Chow Garden is the reason that I love that game so much. It's like, why can't every game have a Chow Garden?
Right? And why haven't they gone back to that? I mean, I don't think there's been a Chow Garden since that game, has there?
Not that I know of, but I'm not a Sonic fan.
I'm not really either anymore.
To be sure. It's kind of crazy, It's like here's a great question. Have you ever, like, maybe when you were younger or before the internet was as accessible, like, even when everybody had the internet in my area, like, there was no thought to, like, go on the computer and look something up, right? It was like, okay, then we can't use the phone, and it's gonna take forever, right? It's just like not worth it. Just don't use the computer. So, what is the worst you've ever missed on a game based on, like, box art or like curb appeal?
Oh, that is a good question. I don't know. I don't know that. Nothing really comes to mind for me because I don't know. You said about, like, going on the internet like that. Even as a kid, I was lucky enough. My parents, like, got us a computer. We had dial up. I would go on and read all those reviews and things, and so I was really into, like, hey, I'm only going to be able to get one game. I want to make sure that it's a game that I'm gonna like. I even remember. So I have a younger brother, and he was not quite the same way. He would. He was more likely to just want a game based on the cover or something. And I'd tell him, I'd look up the reviews and I'd be like, hey, this game has awful reviews. You're not going to like it. He's like, no, I want it. And then he'd get it and then he wouldn't like it. I remember there was one, it was something for the Wii. It was some roller coaster game. It wasn't like Roller Coaster Tycoon or anything like that. It was some
Yeah.
Some off-brand.
Some shovelware. Yeah.
Yeah, basically. And yeah, it's just like, no, you really shouldn't get that. But he wanted it, and he got it, and he played it, and he got bored with it.
God. We had a Wii, and it was just to play Wii Sports. Like, we didn't have any other games on the Wii, because, like, I think my mom went, she's like, oh, wait, we got, like, all these games that are like Wii Sports, but they're not like Wii Sports. Like the Food Channel Cooking Challenge.
Oh, no.
And I'm like, oh, no, this is not good. So, like, it didn't get used for anything. I got and played Driven, which was a racing game based on the movie Driven with Sylvester Stallone in it.
Oh,
that game was boo-boo. That game was not good.
What? Really? I thought that'd be the best game ever.
And then, to add insult to injury, I got, like, a magazine, like, the next month. Might have been Nintendo Power. It might have been, like, EGM. But anyway, I got the magazine. I'm at the grocery store. I'm reading it. There was a review for Driven, and it was 2.5. It was, like, 2.5 out of 10. And I was like, oh, no.
Oh, wow. You never see reviews that low.
Oh, I know. Not anymore. Yeah. It's like, oh, no. And I got, like, the GameCube version, which is, like, really bad.
Oh, no.
So, yeah. So, it was a very bad. Imagine a game like that, right? Where it's like, oh, hey, you're just driving in a car, but then, like, make it bad. Just like, oh, no. It's bad enough it stands out in my mind, but the picture's really cool. It's like on fire, and it's like this car's coming at. It's like this red, white, and blue America car. I'm like, oh, this is so cool. And then you get in, it's like, you lost the race again. You cannot progress. It's like, oh, okay. And it's based on a bad movie.
I mean, I guess they go well together at least.
Yeah, right. To Ebony and Ivory, right?
Right.
So, in my research on you, apart from, like, you know, your hair being, like, you know, pretty cool, like Silver Fox-esque, you know, you give off that kind of vibe. I'm kind of jealous, all right?
All right. You know.
Mine's like a dark brown, but I have, like, the red beard, so I'm like, I feel like a pirate. Anyway, one of the things that I came across, and I was very interested in this at the time that it happened, and I might have actually mentioned it on one of the podcasts I recorded at the time. But the Stop and Swap,
yes,
which is a run that sees a runner play one game to finish another one, which doesn't make sense in my tiny, you know, monkey brain, my stupid guinea brain. Like, you know, I'm from upstate New York. We're hill folk up here. It's too complicated for me to understand. I have a bare idea of how it works. But can you tell the people at home what it is, how it works, and what your role in making it a reality was? Yes,
and I'll try and do my best not to use too much computer sciencey language, but
talk nerdy to me,
nerdy?
Please.
Okay. All right, so basically what happened, and this will be kind of a combination, how we found it plus how it works. So Morpheus, who is a Paper Mario speedrunner, just one day he was doing a bingo race with friends, and he decided to just chill in one room where there's like stars falling. They're like effects, I guess. And he decided to he just opened the partner menu because he wanted to listen to music. He just opened the partner menu to pause and then just like let the game go. And then like a minute and a half later, something like that, the game just locks up. And so we're like, what? Why? And so we look into it, and it turns out that all those effects, for some reason, there was a bug in the game, and those effects in that room were allowed to just like keep building up even whenever the game was paused. It filled up the buffer that the game had, and just couldn't process anymore from that point. And so then from that point, a whole bunch of people started looking into it. At this point, like, I knew enough to be able to follow the conversation, but not as much to be able to like really look into it myself. And so then eventually we get it to the point where this actually leads to ACE, arbitrary code execution, in a task setting. Because we were able to find you can do the same thing in the room where you fight Goomba King with another glitch that just... I don't know fully how that part works. Just something with messing with the flags, different flags that let you move when you're not supposed to be able to move. But basically, the important thing to know is once we got that, to make it RTA viable, we found that you can take that glitch, and if you fill up the buffer not quite to the point where it's going to crash, but like pretty close, but not quite the whole way, in a specific way, you can make the game produce so much code in another area whenever you close the partner menu that all of those effects just create a whole bunch of data all at once, that it overflows and starts overwriting code in a different area. And if you set up the particles just right, you can make the garbage data actually be interpreted as code when the game goes to read that. And so then through a cascade of events, the game eventually ends up trying to execute part of a Mario's player struct as code because the stack is misaligned. And so we have a little bit of control here, because as it turns out, one of the things that we can execute as code is an idle timer. And so there's this timer in memory that if you're not doing anything, it just goes up by 1 every frame. Unfortunately, it's only half of essentially an instruction, so we can only control the first half of the instruction with that. Which means we can control what instruction gets run, basically, but we can't control all of it. We can't control all of the details of the instruction. So what we can do is one of the instructions we can run is an instruction to jump and read code from somewhere else. But the places that we can jump to, because we only have control of half of it, are pretty limited. And so that in and of itself, as far as we can tell so far, there are some other potential leads we haven't been able to figure out. Kind of seems like a dead end, except one of the places that we can jump in memory if you have it installed on your N64 is the expansion pack. The expansion pack was the piece of hardware that was required to run Majora's Mask, Perfect Dark, I think, and DK64, Donkey Kong 64. And so that gives you an additional 4 megabytes of memory. I know, huge amount of memory.
Gigantic.
Enormous. Imagine having more than that. But so one of the people who, if you follow these types of discoveries at all, you've probably heard of Mr. Cheese. He was involved in this, and he just suggested, hey, we could probably use Ocarina of Time to put something useful on the expansion pack. Because at that time, you know, Ace had already been discovered in that game. And so, as it turns out, the two different games have a few kind of quirks that help out with this. So Ocarina of Time, presumably because it was going to be a disk drive game, I'm not 100% sure that's the reasoning, but either way, whenever you boot up Ocarina of Time, even though it doesn't use the expansion pack at all, it clears out the memory on the entire expansion pack, puts all zeros there, which is super nice for us because all zeros as an instruction, the N64's reading is basically just do nothing. It's no operation. And so what we were able to do then is we use Ocarina of Time, and shout outs to Save State. They made a setup that we could use to basically use Ace to write an instruction onto the expansion pack that, when interpreted by the N64, is a jump to the location where file names are stored in Paper Mario. And so, yeah, combining those, if we can manage to use that in Paper Mario, we can execute our Paper Mario file names as code. And so what we ended up doing, if you remember Banjo-Kazooie Stop and Swop, which is where the Stop and Swop name comes from.
Yeah.
Yeah, they originally were planning on using a feature where they would let you basically, turn off your N64, swap games to, I believe it was going to be Banjo-Tooie, right?
Yep.
Yeah, and so if you had unlocked things on Banjo-Kazooie, basically the RAM doesn't, whenever the RAM loses power, it doesn't immediately lose all of the data that it's holding, but over time it does eventually decay. But their idea was to use the memory that's still there, just in memory, and then if you put in Banjo-Tooie soon enough, it'll still see that that's there, and you can unlock things based on it.
Yeah.
Which ended up getting scrapped. Understandably, Nintendo did not want to have to be able to support that feature. And
yeah, because I think that it came from like an inexact understanding of how the hardware actually worked.
Yeah.
That it wouldn't work on every console. Also, that it would also probably involve like people taking their game out of a console that's on, which is also a bad idea.
Yeah, who would do that?
So then,
yep. And honestly, we probably wouldn't have even thought of it if it wasn't for Rare having that idea in the first place. They had to scrap it, but we don't care what Nintendo wants us to do with our console. And so we decided, we went from there. And this is more where I came in with actually developing this. We knew theoretically that this would work. If we switched out the cartridges fast enough, we should theoretically be able to keep our instruction and have RAM decay, keep RAM decay to a minimum to where we could use the timer that we want to execute as code to jump to that location in memory. And so that's where I just so happened to have a JP copy of Ocarina of Time. A 1.0, which was needed at the time, along with Paper Mario. And so hey, I'm going to figure this out and try and see if we can get this to happen. And so I put in a lot of work to try and make it actually possible. First, we started by just, seeing if the Paper Mario side was even possible at all, by using basically a Game Shark code to simulate the Ocarina of Time part. And I managed to pull that off after many attempts. We had a bunch of difficulty at first because it turns out we thought we should have up to a 16 frame window based on how much the RAM would decay. But it turns out even if you as fast as possible, turn the console off, swap cartridges and turn it back on, you still get a lot of RAM decay. So it's not surprising that Nintendo didn't want to support Stop and Swap in the first place.
Right.
So the first few times I got it, it just happened to be by random chance that I hit the smaller frame window. Other thing I didn't mention, in order to hit the frame window to get the timer to the value that it needs to be, not joking whatsoever, you need to wait 69 seconds of just standing still. It just happens to be that way, which is fantastic.
The universe giveth and the universe taketh away.
Right. But then, and mind you, prior to this, I was not an Ocarina of Time speedrunner. I was a fan of the speedruns. I'd watched a lot of them, but I'd never really tried any of it myself, outside of just messing around with a couple tricks that friends showed me. So I had to
learn today.
Yeah, I had to learn. And it was, for anybody that's familiar with whenever Ace was first discovered in Ocarina of Time, and they were doing these really complicated routes with needing to get the slingshot and have to make it so that you're looking at a very specific angle, much more difficult than the setups that they do for Ace today. That's what I had to learn because that just happened to be the way that it worked out to get the instruction where we wanted. So I learned all that, and the video is on my YouTube of me trying to get everything at once, and it took me a few tries, but I did manage to pull it off. And so, yeah, the role that I played there was really getting it to a point where it was viable to do as a human.
That's so awesome. It's such a it's almost like it starts off as such a Cheech and Chong or a Harold and Kumar hey man, wouldn't it be so cool if we could play Ocarina of Time and then put in beat Paper Mario. It's like, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? And then it's like, no, it's actually kind of like, it's kind of a thing. And I knew about the stop and swap stuff because I'm a big Banjo fan. And if you've played Banjo as much as I have, these giant eggs that serve no purpose in the game, and the ice key. Can't forget about the ice key.
Yep, I remember that.
And then I think that they ended up doing something with it on the 360.
That's what I heard. I haven't played the 360 version, but that's what I heard.
Yeah. I think that what they ended up doing was like, it's like, hey, you do something in Banjo-Kazooie and Tooie, you unlock stuff in Nuts and Bolts.
Oh, okay.
Which is interesting because it completely removes the entire idea of the mechanic, right? Because you're just like, hey, do you have a Banjo-Kazooie file on this hard drive? Let's read it. Right? So it's like, wow, you really took the air out of that balloon.
Yeah.
I guess. It's like, I guess, Mom. And what's more, obviously, gotta be a really big moment when you hit it, right? When you have
it was huge.
I can't think of any greater, like, culmination to, like, one individual speedrunning journey than having your run featured at GDQ. I do a lot of research for Speed Ducks. We do a lot of research for Speed Ducks. There's always these weird they're not weird. They're storylines that pop up and they end with a run at GDQ. It's like, this is it. This is the big time. You got here. You know, he's a wrecking machine, right? Like, it's just like, this is the fight with Apollo Creed, right? Like, you're in there, this is the big moment. And it is a fitting end to a lot of people's stories. So you got to have it featured at GDQ.
I did.
Talk to me about doing that at SGDQ 2021. What did it feel like? What is the emotion like? What does it mean to be, I mean, if it were in person, that would have been insane.
Oh, I wish it could have been in person, but hey,
Yeah, no, totally. But like, the room would have been packed.
Right. Yeah, so insane. Yeah, so leading up to it, and actually from what I just finished at, if the run was still in the state that it was when I first pulled it off, I would not have felt comfortable with submitting and running it at GDQ because it was terribly inconsistent. So between that point and I think I took a break from it for a few months before submissions opened. But whenever I came back to it, what I wanted to do is like, okay, I want to find a way to make this consistent so that I can pull it off with as consistently as I possibly can. And so what I did is I just started working with it on the Paper Mario side of things to what I did. So before I was just trying to time, that 69 second thing. Turns out with good conditions, I can only really ever guarantee a 3-frame window that it'll work with at 30 FPS, which is not a big window to hit. And so what I ended up doing is I made an audio file with a metronome so that I could time it that way. And using that, I managed to get it so that I can hit the window almost every single time. And then another development that came between those two periods was that Ocarina of Time discovered what's known as Light Note SRM, which simplified things on the Ocarina of Time side a ton. Before we had to use like 2 different files in order to get the right ACE instructions to run. With Light Note, we could just literally write the contents of half of the Ocarina of Time file name to the location specified by the other half. And so that shortened the Ocarina of Time section to, at least when I'm doing it, around 8 minutes or so, compared to the more than twice what it was before. And it was much more consistent and much easier. And so with those two things together, I managed to get the time down. I think my PB now is like 24 minutes or something like that. And so at that point, I was like, okay, I feel good. I can pull this off consistently. I'm going to submit it to GDQ. And I did. And I mean, I wasn't surprised they accepted it. It was a pretty unique run. But yeah, just being able to run it, there was so much information to be able to pack into, like to try and explain this in the 24, 25 minutes, however long it took me. And so I actually had to script. We had a few sections that were scripted, and my 2 commentators, Rain, who was one of the people who was pretty heavily involved with getting things working whenever the crash was like first discovered. And Icewind, who's another good friend who runs Paper Mario. And so we just had to work together and try and fit all of this information in, and we did it. And so, you know, we finally get the run in. I'm doing the GDQ run, and I can't believe how well it went. I mean, I had a few struggles with holding ESS position in Ocarina of Time. You know, nervous. You have to just like push the analog stick just a little bit. But all the big stuff, like I got the OT as soon as I hit the crash, which is like how that part ends. That was perfect. And then I nailed everything about the Paper Mario side first try. And I don't know, it was, I feel like it would have been a little bit better if I could have, you know, heard the crowd behind me or whatever. But just being able to pull that off and being able to give probably about the best demonstration of the run that I could have given was, I don't know, is enormously satisfying.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. That was crazy to watch. Ever since I started going to GDQ, I have it up. Like, I'll have it on in the house, but I don't watch it because what GDQ means to me is not what it means. Like, the production is not the thing that I miss.
Oh, it's exact same for me, yeah.
So I'm like, I'll have it on. I'll peek. I watched that run. I watched your run.
Well, thank you.
I'm like, what the hell? This is a pipe dream. This is some really cool stuff. That and the putting ketchup on the disc, which is like, I think they did that. Like that. I'm like, what the fuck is that? That's a SpongeBob.
Yeah.
I'm like, y'all do what? Put ketchup on it? You're gross. It's all gonna get in there. It's all gonna spin around. You know, I can't smell, but I know what bad ketchup smells like because I used to be able to smell. You all want that in your office?
I wouldn't.
Oh, dried up ketchup? Not for going fast, bro. Miss me with that. So, I mean, that would have been really cool if you got to have it in person. Hopefully, you do get your big stage.
Hopefully
moment.
Someday.
You know, I have faith in you. You'll find something else.
Hopefully the opportunity for anyone to have that is, you know, soon.
I think I've been talking to people about this, but in my heart, or sorry, in my mind, I know that if they were like SGDQ is on, in my mind, if they were like it's online, I'd be like, that's appropriate. You know, Omicron, got to get Omicron under control. But in my heart, if they told me it's in person, we would crash the website again. Like, I would be in a scamper to go get it. Like, to go sign up and reg. Like, I just would. There's no way. You know, I just miss everybody. I miss my friends. I miss the atmosphere. It's like, hey, listen, we can all do social distance, but I'd like to see you guys. You know?
Yeah, I definitely feel that.
We'll be on our quintuple vax at that point, you know? It's like, it'll be good. So, yeah. So, this actually parlays pretty well. We were talking about how Twitter earlier is a platform without nuance.
Yes.
And so, it kind of brings me right into this overall conversation about accessibility. There's been a lot of talk, I think, since like July or August of like 2020, a lot of talk, increased talk about accessibility, whether that be in individual communities or events being more accessible or speedrunning itself being more accessible. And it's been pretty refreshing to hear. And recently, so like in the past, I've seen it be about all those different topics. I've seen it be about, you know, are online events, like, is an in-person event unaccessible, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, well, by definition, it is, right? But, you know, I also don't have a solution for you, right? Like, everyone can't go to the Bon Jovi concert.
Right.
So, I mean, we are talking about matter at some point, right? Mass. But the conversation recently has kind of settled into talking about Turbo and, you know, like, well, is Turbo, you know, Turbo as of the rules is like, okay, well, Turbo's cheating, right? Because you're not doing it. It's like, well, we should make Turbo legal, right?
Mhm.
A lot of the conversation is focused around that. I believe when I reached out to you, things had kind of started to simmer down and I was bummed. But then recently, as we're recording this, Metroid Dread just came out and was like, hey, you can use any turbo you want.
Yes.
I think the asterisk on that in the Discord is like, it's really 20 hertz, but that's what all the controllers go up to anyway. So it's good. So it's like, use any turbo you want, as long as it's 20 hertz. So, and you had made tweets that I saw on my timeline. I think they had been retweeted. And I wanted to get your kind of, thoughts on everything. I think we're on the same page before we get started. So if you're listening to this and you're, mauling over, the people having speed buttons, I'd like to give you an opportunity to speak directly on the matter.
Sure. Yeah, I think, especially as it regards to turbo, it's kind of like a pushback between like the quote unquote purity of the run versus the accessibility and like healthiness of the run. And I don't know, my views as I've been speedrunning longer and longer have kind of shifted more toward the accessibility side of things. I personally don't care as much about like the pure within reason, the purity versus don't care as much about the purity and maybe, I guess, competitiveness side. I still think those things have their place. I just think they need to be balanced with other things. And when it comes to turbo, I mean, I run Paper Mario, which is a game that, there are worse offenders out there, but there's a decent amount of button mashing in it. Luckily, not the text. One of the great things about that game is it just lets you hold B for the text. Don't know why more games don't do that. But anyway, I think when possible, we should at least consider. I think that speedrunning communities should at least consider the possibility of allowing turbo in their runs. I don't think that it should be allowed for everything by any means. But prior to this whole conversation, basically outside of a few individual instances of games that had allowed it, like I believe Super Mario RPG and Earthbound at the time already had for text mashing, there's basically just, this belief that, turbo's cheating. It shouldn't be allowed. Full stop. And I guess where I wanted the conversation to go to, which I think it kind of has, is we shouldn't just blanket ban turbo. It should be something that individual communities, that individual communities think about and decide for themselves whether or not it makes sense for their speed game. And there are definitely like different factors that can play into that, because sometimes some games, if you allowed turbo, it may completely change the way that the run is done. Maybe that lets you do some new glitch or something that you physically can't do without turbo. And then that gets into the idea of like, well, how easy is it to obtain a controller that lets you do turbo for this game? Which for some consoles like SNES, it's from what I've looked into, it seems pretty easy and not that expensive, versus something like N64 or GameCube. It can be much more difficult because, third-party controllers for those games pretty much all suck with few exceptions. So then it's like, well, do we want to have, special hardware? And then is that going to be obtainable if we have somebody making it and they stop? Is it going to be difficult to get your hands on? So there's a lot of different factors I think that you have to factor in. And I think that they're going to be different for every different community. But the big thing that I want is accessibility is good. If we can, we should try and make speedrunning communities and speedrunning games accessible as possible, within reason, in my opinion. And so I just think that this is something else that, should be considered by communities and not just blanket banned.
Mm-hmm. I've always been of the mind that, everybody, at first blush, I think would be hard pressed unless your like argument is like, the NFL, like it's the integrity of the game, right? And you hear all those like guys like, oh, he's kneeling, he's ruining the integrity of the game. It's It's like, okay, calm down, right? Unless that's your argument, I think it's pretty hard, or it's an argument in bad faith to say that, like, it's a bad idea, like, flat out right.
Mm-hmm.
The nuanced part is the part that nobody will read, is it has to be a community decision, and it has to be equitable, because if at some point you create a situation where your meta revolves around a piece of hardware, now you're creating a different kind of inaccessibility, which is money.
Right.
Right? Because now you have to pay to do something that you can't do with your own hands. So, like, it involves testing. Like 20 hertz in your game might not even matter. But 20 hertz in, like, a 30-minute game might be something that, like, people can't do. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Pressing a button on every frame might do something. Pressing a button on every frame might not do something. So I think it's always been like, hey, listen, I think this is a thing, like, communities just need to be open, but, I mean, then you start getting into people that are getting upset, and it's hard to argue with people or have a conversation with people when they're upset.
Yeah, definitely.
But it's definitely, like, a scale situation where it's hard to make anything more open and accessible without also making a different kind of accessibility issue around money, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, hey, well, listen, no problem. We'll do this. It's like, yeah, now you got to pay more money.
Yeah,
right?
and it's like, what's an acceptable amount of money? Because, like, oh, well, this is like, some $10 adapter. Well, that's not bad. But if you start getting up toward, like, 40, 50, it's like, how much is, prohibitive?
Right, and it's already kind of an expensive hobby.
True.
You have to have a capture card. Some people need CRTs. I have a retro tank. So,
yep.
Rip me.
Yeah, you can really sink a lot of money into speedrunning.
Mm-hmm. And so, I when I was reading the people, there's actually someone in a lot of those threads that popped up. And I'm not going to say who it is, because that's not what this program is for, but I'm absolutely going to dunk on him. I'm going to call him a Bad Take Billy.
Okay. And
Bad Take Billy goes into some of these threads about speedrunning and has arguments in bad faith, right? And the one that I'll put out there, and I'm kind of being cautious, I'm not just saying he's a piece of shit. He submitted to an event that I did, and he ran in an event that I was a part of. And he's just a young guy, right? He's just young. I forget, so I know that y'all forget, right? That people on the internet are also young. That there are people in our communities that are under 18 or are in high school, right?
Yep.
And so he's a freshman in college. I remember that I was an asshole when I was a freshman in college, and I didn't have Twitter to go tell everyone how much of an asshole I was. I'm not saying any of this to forgive him, because I'm also about to shit on him. But he was arguing, like, no, you can't have turbo. He was like, what's next? Are we just going to mod the games? I'm like, shut up. Will you calm down? Like, no one's even saying that. There was one time, it was someone got banned, and it's one of those, like, speedrun Twitter reacted to that guy getting shit canned kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Like how we do that sometimes. Yeah, we all, like, as one unified wave, we cast the trash out to the sea. And he's like, well, are we really gonna punish someone when the textbook definition of the slur that he said was bundle of twigs? I'm like, you did not really just say that. You are a Bad Take Billy. You are garbage.
Yeah, that's yeah, no.
They are shadow banned from everything that I will ever do. So I want everyone to know I'm not defending him. I just also am like, man, I'm glad that my thoughts were when I was 21 were not captured, because I don't think I ever thought, oh, it's just a bundle of twigs. I don't know how that guy, what rock he lived under, that he got to 20 and nobody ever let him in. Let him in on how slurs work.
Yeah. I don't know. Some people make me wonder.
That dude also had a really bad take about Aunt Jemima, and I'm like, bruh, what are you talking about? He's like, we're getting rid of Aunt Jemima. Oh, we're canceling black women. I'm like,
oh my god.
I'm like, my guy, you need to do a little googly Google. You know, I'm just saying.
Do a little critical thinking.
Yeah,
and Googling and learning.
Oh my god. That is the one thing. I saw my old science teacher, and I was like, the most important thing that you have to teach kids is how to think critically. Because I can't believe all these kids that are coming out of school and they're like, yep, this is the way things are. I'm like, oh god, we're so fucked. The Zoomers.
Oh man, I do sometimes wonder how, like, because the worst examples are always the ones that you're gonna see and are gonna stand out. So I do always wonder, like, you know, has it shifted? Are more people like losing critical thinking skills? Or are we just noticing the examples of people who don't have it more? And I don't know what that is, but like, it does make you wonder.
I think that the generation that is growing up and living in this world right now should be the most accepting and like open generation, especially when it comes to gender and like sexual preferences. They should be like the most open. You know, the amount of like when I grew up, there was exactly one person in my school that was non-binary, and we had to like look up what it meant. Right, and I live in, you know, small town, you know, upstate, right, where there's more, you know. It's not like the people that are like, oh, we live in upstate New York. It's the city. It's the city. No, it's not. If you were here, you would not think you were in Manhattan. So it's like now there's a lot of culture. My boss tells me about his kids, and they're super like into it, and they have a great emotional intelligence. I think they have great emotional skills, and they have really good like. They probably are more equipped to handle the mental health problems that, like, I think millennials and maybe Gen Xers probably didn't have. And all of that is probably a product of, you know, the ability to communicate with each other visually. You know, we were able to communicate, and I'm just lumping us in the same generation. I hope you don't mind.
That's fine.
We were able to communicate with people our own age, but it was a real text format. You know, it was, and when you have text formats like that, you almost read yourself in the sound of, you read those messages in the sound of yourselves, right? And it creates this sort of like pseudo echo chamber because you end up surrounding yourself with the people that agree with you. They get to like visually see each other, like these like FaceTimes and Snapchat and all this other stuff. They're sending, my niece and nephew are like communicating in a way that I'm like, I don't even know what you're doing. You just send pictures. They're not even like saying words on the messages. They're just pictures. I sound like an old man. I sound like a really old fucking man. I don't understand what you're doing here.
These kids and their newfangled devices.
They just send them. They just send like my niece will send like a picture. It's just her on the couch. I'm like, what is this? I'm like playing I Spy.
What's in the picture?
Yeah.
What's the hidden message?
Yeah, what's the hidden message? Oh, it's the Find the Difference game. I love those. But I think that in general, like, they have those things kind of locked up, but I feel like some of them are losing the ability to, like, critically think differently than what they may be inclined to believe, right?
Mm-hmm.
You know? And, I don't know what the solution to that is. I don't know what the next part of that conversation is. This is kind of where my ignorance on the matter probably ramps up and all my fancy words kind of come to a close. But, you know, is it a thing like you're saying, like millennials are lazy? Or was it just the 5 people that, you know, CNN or, you know, Fox chose to talk to that were lazy?
Right.
You know, God. So.
Yeah, and it's hard to know. I mean, I don't know how we figure that out. Hopefully we can figure out some kind of way to solve that, but it's not going to be me figuring it out.
No, people smarter than us will definitely
definitely
take a crack at it. Speaking of the future, obviously you mentioned earlier that at once you were full-time employed and now
Yes.
you do this content creation gigamajig. Talk to me about, what you think will be the greatest challenges that you face, the next month, the next year, the next several years, right?
Right.
Like, what do you think is going to be the biggest, like, change or content change or whatever you want to change?
Right. Well, I try not to think too far ahead in the future because I don't know, that can be kind of overwhelming to me. But as of right now, and I've been open with my my community about this and stuff. I'm only able to be full time right now because my previous job as a software developer, it made decent money, and so I was able to pay off my student loans and build up a decent savings. And so right now I'm I'm not too far off, but without those savings, I would not be able to be full time right now. And so I think definitely the biggest challenge that hopefully I'm able to overcome, and what I'm working on right now, is getting to a point where I don't need to rely on those savings and I can actually, be confident that I can do full-time content creation full-time. And I'm pretty confident that, if I stick with it and, things do seem to be pointing in the right direction, that I'll be able to do it. But that is by far the biggest challenge I think that I would have right now. If I do manage to get to that point, though, I think at that point it's going to be more just figuring out what the next goal even is. Because, as a content creator, I feel like up to a certain point, there's always a bunch of built-in goals that you want to try and hit. With streaming, at least, it's you start out, you're like, okay, I want to build a community of people that are, actually coming and watching my streams. And, you get affiliate. Maybe your next goal is I want to get partner now. And then, I've seen it a lot. People will, and I don't know 100% sure that this is the reasoning, but I'll see people get partner, and then after they get partner, their numbers kind of tend to fall off. And I tend to think, at least in a lot of cases, that might be because they hit their goal. What do they want to do next? And the motivation can kind of die off there. And that's, I'm kind of going off. I don't know if I'm answering the exact question, but I've always taken an approach where I would rather do things slowly, but I don't want to use the word right, but I can't think of a better word to use. So slowly but right. So whenever I was trying to hit these goals, I'm not trying to take any shortcuts because I want things to work long term. And again, don't take this as me shaming people for doing this. I don't think it's inherently a bad thing. But I'll see a lot of people whenever they're close to partner numbers, they'll be push for partner. Everybody come in, watch my stream. And get rid of the raid thing in the URL so that my numbers can go up. And I'm for me personally, I want to be able to do this long term. I want to be able to hit those numbers without trying to force it. If it's gonna hit, I want it to happen on its own. And so I never did any type of pushing for that or anything. It came, and I wasn't hiding the fact that I of course I wanted to get partner and stuff like that. But yeah, and so that's kind of how I want to treat all of this stuff. I don't know, just moving forward, I want to just, even if it takes a little bit longer, as long as I have that time and I can try and push for these things, I want to do things, build good community. I don't know, I'm kind of rambling at this point, but...
No, I understand. Yeah, I think that I totally get it. I see people, and maybe going in a slightly different direction, I see people do the push for partner, right? And then once they get it, they stop doing the thing that got them over the hump, right?
Yeah.
And then it's oh, you're a partner and you have 20 people watching you again because you got the thing and you got the carrot, right?
Yeah.
You chased it long enough, you tired, whatever, and you got it, and then you stopped streaming every day. Then you stopped doing the thing that made the people come to see your content, right? Or to see your stream or whatever. I said this to a friend the other day. and I'm a firm believer in everything that I do. It doesn't matter so much. It doesn't just matter what you do. It matters how you do it.
Definitely.
You know, like being the number one YouTuber on, or whatever, the number one Twitch streamer, but being a pile of human garbage to get there, what is the point?
Definitely, yeah.
You know? And, like, I can't even imagine a community that big where it's millions of people, right? Because I'm like, you're just talking to the ocean, right?
Yeah.
It's just noise. It's just a sea of noise. You know, so it's like, it means something when you find, like, 50 or 60 people that are like, hey, listen, I have the collective works of all of human history at the touch of a button, right? I have everything. There are 1 billion hours of content uploaded to YouTube and Twitch and all these other platforms every day. Anything that I can possibly think of to titillate my senses, I can download in a few minutes, even on bad Wi-Fi. I can stream every show that's been made in the last 60 years and any movie that I can possibly Google. And movies I don't even know exist are being presented to me constantly, right?
Yep.
I can go back and watch old trailers for movies. And if that's not enough, there's 1 billion people that are live right now. And so the fact that they have the entire collective of the efforts of humankind to entertain ourselves, and they choose to watch you, that is special, and that's worth creating a community around and doing things the right way.
Yeah,
right?
Definitely.
So, I kind of rambled there too.
No, it's fine.
All right, so we answered a lot of serious questions. I want to ask you some less than serious questions.
Okay.
If you had the ability to go and erase your memory of any one piece of anything you've ever consumed, whether that be a video or a game or a movie or a song or an album, so you could experience it again for the very first time, what would you pick and why?
I think I would go with Avatar: The Last Airbender, like just that whole show.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. That's just, it's always been one of my favorite shows, and I don't know, any kind of show. I feel like just being able to watch it again for the first time, one that you really like. I don't know. I'd also be really interested to see like how it would hit if I saw it for the first time now versus whenever I did first watch it.
Yeah, that's the part that people don't kind of remember, is because you are not the person you were when you first saw it.
Oh, definitely not. I'm a completely different person, I'd say.
Yeah, so it's like, man, what do you do with that information, right? Like, how do you process this show differently? It's a show that I watched as an adult.
Okay.
For the first time. So, as an adult watching it, I'm like, all I see is how much Iroh is like watching Zuko just do this thing that's just like gonna like lead him nowhere, like lead him to a worse place, and he's like, it's like the prodigal son. This is like, okay, we're back on that again. Like, come on, man, come on, you gotta give me something. Like, come on, stop this endless pursuit. It's like two seasons of him just like, I gotta kill the Avatar. Why? What do you want to do? You know. So. Yeah, I mean, it was pretty good as an adult. I think I would pick... God, I might pick The Wire.
Oh, I still haven't seen that.
Oh, The Wire's really good. Or I might pick The West Wing. Because The West Wing, the first 4 seasons of The West Wing are the best written thing I've ever seen in my life.
Really? Okay, I haven't seen that one either. Maybe I need to go watch it.
Those are the West Wing, like just the first season of the West Wing, every episode. Oh, politics. I'm just like, listen, if you're listening to me talk about the West Wing at home, yes, you. No, not you, the guy behind him. Yeah, you. If you're listening to me talk about the West Wing and you're like, oh, politics, just go watch it. It's chef's kiss. It's really good. Rob Lowe, Martin Sheen, Richard Schiff, Bradley Whitford, Allison Janney, really good cast. Like, really, really good cast. You know, there's so many more names I'm forgetting. Everyone in that show contributed. It's a really smart show, so it kind of checks a different box in my mind. It's a really great show. And The Wire is like, it's kind of like television heroin. I don't know how to explain it. It's really good. So,
I mean, I've heard nothing but good things about that show. So
yeah. I mean, did you ever see like the other HBO shows of the time, like The Sopranos?
No, there's a lot of TV that I haven't watched, honestly.
Yeah, Sopranos is good too.
I know my
like
parents
Deadwood
really liked The Sopranos. What was that one?
Deadwood.
Deadwood. Yeah, I haven't seen that one either.
I'm a big Western guy, so you know it's checks a lot of boxes for me too. Yeah. Okay. So Avatar is a good answer. That's not what I thought. You know? So I'm pleasantly surprised. Okay. You've committed the unspeakable act of not petting a dog that wanted to be pet, and have thus been sentenced to death.
Fair punishment.
When I do this question with international viewers, I have to remind them that they're in the U.S., so this is a death penalty scenario. You know, this is your last meal. What are your go-to for your final meal before you bite the big one?
Final meal. I remember the best meal that I've ever had. It was I forget the name of the place, but it's a steakhouse that was in Detroit. Me and some friends, we just decided, hey, we're gonna have one night. We're gonna actually spend a lot of money on steak, and it was I forget what cut, but I know it was a dry aged steak, and oh my god, that had to have been the best meal that I've ever had. So I would want to have that again. Can have whatever else with it. Just give me the steak.
That's a pretty good one. I think I would go for I went to this rib joint in Florida, and it's the best ribs I've ever had, and I've been chasing the dragon ever since.
Ooh.
They were so good. I think it's called Oakwood was
the
name of the place. And we went to this, it was super tiny, and they brought it out on this like piece of paper. Like, they didn't give you a plate. It's just like a piece of paper with some barbecue on it. I was like, so good. I've had it since, and it's never been as good as that first time. So definitely looking for the dragon on that one. Okay, this is a fun one. Hopefully you have one for this. I asked some content creators, and they're like, no, my YouTube comments are usually I'm like, come on, I know you have them. I do have a pretty healthy comment section. Most of the comments fall into between positive or helpful, right? Or like pointing out the one random mistake, and then they all point it out. But bad comments are inevitable. It's like hoping the sun doesn't come up, right? Like you're just utility. Have you ever received any legendary bad comments that just like stay in your mind? Or have you ever dunked on anyone so hard that they thought you were Larry Bird?
I'm not usually one to dunk on people, but it's actually funny you bring this up because I'm trying to get more into making YouTube content, and this last video that I made about why Paper Mario on Switch is crashing and deleting saves is like kind of blowing up a bit, and for the first time, and this was like I just uploaded it a couple weeks ago. For the first time, I'm starting to get like I'm seeing the types of comments you get whenever the YouTube algorithm picks you up, and I don't know. Some people, I don't know if there's any one that's really stood out yet, but there are some people that I just wonder how like about their grasp on the English language. I don't know. No, there was this one that I screenshotted. It was somebody that just said, mine didn't delete, maybe I have a different version where there's no pixels, and I'm just like, what? What do you mean it doesn't have pixels?
My brain itches. Wow.
But yeah, I'm seeing there's a lot of good comments too, don't get me wrong, but there's a lot of questionable ones.
I believe it. We had we had one time. We made a video. We made 2 videos for Speed Docs. We made the history of Donkey Kong Country, and we had the history of Donkey Kong Country 2, right?
Okay.
And we had one guy comment, and he said, I really wish you didn't make these videos, because now it means that Summoning Salt can't make these videos. I'm like, you're watching the video.
Oh my god.
It's done already. You don't have to hope that he's gonna make it. We made it for you. We made it. It's like, yeah, but now he can't make it. I'm like, what the flying fuck are you talking about?
Oh my god.
I know. People, it's just like, did you ever see the Disney Sword in the Stone movie? It's like the animated
No,
one.
I didn't watch that.
There's a scene where, because there's a talking owl, and he's like berating the Arthur as a little boy, and he's like standing on top of his head, use your head, and he's just stamping him out. And every time that I'm like, what are you even talking about? I imagine this owl, use your head. What are you doing? Why are you here? I can't imagine. All right, 2 more, and then we'll call it quits. You ready?
Okay, yeah, let's do it.
Okay, if you were a boss in like an MMO or an RPG, what loot would you drop?
Oh, what loot? Oh, okay. To be honest, probably G Fuel, considering how much of that I drink.
This podcast sponsored by G Fuel.
And I'm not sponsored by them. I just like the product.
You're big in on the G Fuel?
I do. So I used to drink a lot of energy drinks, and because I don't like coffee, but I still like want caffeine. And so energy drinks were my go-to. And then I kind of heard about G Fuel, and I don't know. It's basically just the caffeine, and it's cheap. I don't know how it compares to coffee, but it's cheaper than energy drinks, and I really like the taste. So I switched to that, and my wallet has thanked me.
I tried an energy drink one time. Like, I tried drinking a Monster. I took like 1 gulp, and I had like a migraine.
Oh no.
And I'm like, oh my god. The only other time I ever had something was I had a friend, and his parents were like in this phase where the only thing to drink in their house was Pepsi Max.
Oh.
And it has ginseng in it. And I had like 1 or 2 of those and wasn't told that it was different. And I had a migraine. And then we went to the Bronx Zoo all day.
Oh, that sounds awful.
And I was like, my head is being crushed by like a trash compactor.
No, I got started early with the energy drinks. I remember my first one. Honestly, it's actually still my favorite energy drink. I had a Rockstar Punched in middle school, and I never looked back.
Jeez, I used to be on the Diet Coke grind. Like
Yeah?
Up until very recently, I was putting them away. But you know what? My wallet has also thanked me. My body has.
Yeah, it adds up.
Yeah. Also because, like, I think with, like, soda in particular, I don't know how it equates to energy drinks. Maybe you can speak to this more. But for soda, you, like, get to this space where you're like, am I hungry or am I thirsty or am I just super dehydrated all the time?
I don't think I've ever had dehydration, but I know the feeling where it's like, do I really want to drink this or am I just drinking it out of habit?
Like, I started, like, recently, like, last couple weeks, I just I've done this before, but I've swapped it out for all water, and I used to go from, like, maybe, like, 6 or 7 cans of Diet Coke a day, like, plus, like, maybe 1 or 2 from the gas station, to, like, 3 bottles of water, and now I'm like, oh, I was dehydrated. All the time. So I'm like, I don't know. It's working out though, I guess. Hey, I don't know.
That's good to hear.
I'm saving money. It gets so expensive.
Yeah, it really does. I also You said Diet Coke. I used to drink not quite as much, but I used to be like a 3 cans of Mountain Dew a day kind of guy.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That like even I couldn't do that. That shit's like fucking sludge.
I like it more than I wish I did, but I try and stay away from it now.
That is like, for me, that's the thick soda. I don't know how to explain it. It feels like I'm drinking Jell-O. It feels like
I can understand that.
It's just like a baby amount of sugar. And I'm not saying like a little bit amount. I'm saying it's the size of a baby. That's how much sugar they put in. It is a rough trip. It is rough, yeah. Diet Mountain Dew I used to kind of fuck around with, but
I tried that one time. I actually like accidentally hit the wrong button on a vending machine. And I was like, well, I bought it. I'll try it. And it was like the most disgusting thing ever to me. I was probably too used to the sugar.
Oh god. I can't do sugary sodas either. Like I was just kind of stun locked in I'd be diabetic. I'd be Diet Eddie. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of funny how it worked out. But and the last question I'll ask you before we wrap up is, what is the tiniest object that you own that is the most valuable? I realized that I wrote this question down super scuffed and then I sent it to you. I wrote holds the most valuable. That's not English. I'm a YouTube commenter. It can either be monetary or personal, but the answer to this question is always interesting when it's the smaller the object.
Okay. Yeah, I think I don't know how to describe this. I'm like holding it in my hand right now. It's this little, I guess at this point it'd be like a desk toy to me. It's this little ball that has a whole bunch of like rubber, what do I even call them? Lines sticking out of it. It's like a teal and orange. And I don't know, it's just fun to like throw around in my hands, and it is the oldest possession that I think that I have. Like I don't remember a time in my life when I didn't have it. And I don't know, I just like, like to think back and when just playing around with it as a kid. And yeah, no, I'd keep it around. It's really cool.
That's a cool one. That's a cool one. I like that. I think like it's so easy to say like jewelry, like for like
yeah.
I had someone on the show. This is really funny. I'm gonna put Sable on blast. My friend Sable Dragon Rook, the last Guardian runner extraordinaire. She was telling me about her like most prized possession. Right, it's like this like little pewter dragon that she had and everything, and I was like, oh, that's a very touching story. I was like, I thought you were gonna say your wedding ring. She's like, oh yeah, that.
Yeah, that's whatever.
The sign of your nuptials, your vows to your everlasting partner in this mortal coil. Nah, the pewter dragon.
That's pretty funny, actually.
Yeah, it was a good moment. It was a good moment. So, well, all right. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for being on the show. I really appreciate it. I'm glad that we got to sit down and have this conversation. I've been looking forward to it for quite a little bit.
Yeah, no problem. It was a really fun time. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to find more stuff from JCog, you can follow them on Twitter. That's at JCog, JCOG_. That's at JCog_ on Twitter. You can follow them on Twitch. That's twitch.tv/JCog, JCOG. We have YouTube. That's youtube.com/JCoggers, JCOGGERS. So, those are the places you can find our guests from today. Thank you so much for being a guest on the show. If you like the show, please remember to share it with your friends, share it with your neighbors, share it with your neighbors' kids. They have little fingers, so they have a hard time pushing the buttons. Thank you to everyone that supports the show and doing what you do so that we can stay free of influence from the algorithm and keep having people on the show that we want to talk to. And tune in next week where we have another great conversation that I've been really looking forward to sharing with you guys. We have another great guest on next week. So thank you so much. Thank you everyone who supports the show. And I will see you guys next week. Bye-bye.